Heyo, everybody. Hopefully this is working. Says it's working. Lots of learning curves here. Okay, beautiful. Let's get the chat going. Thanks for everyone's patience. I don't know what I'm doing. Um, so yeah, learning together. Let's make sure that this is working over here. And it is. Sweet. Everyone hear me okay? Try to pay more attention to chat. Okay. So yeah, again, thanks everybody for your patience. Little delay. I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm just figuring that polish things as we go here. So yeah, getting this to stream on my channel, and Longo's channel was a bit of a learning curve, and getting all the commenting and all that stuff figured out. Yeah. Okay. Well, shit. Let's dive right in. So yeah, welcome to episode 2. Um, yeah, and I didn't really give any background, but I mean, I'm sure a lot of you people here are familiar with me just through Longo, and obviously, um, 3 years ago or so, I co-hosted a radio show that we put on YouTube called Radio Tartary. Some of you guys may remember that, maybe not. It was pretty obscure. Not a lot of people followed it, um, and that got taken off YouTube. We got on some touchy subjects, and yeah, it got taken down. So um, I just figured that that wasn't really for me, and that YouTube may not be friendly to the kind of things I was digging into and thinking about and talking about. And yeah, so I took a few years off and stuck to just kind of sharing on Twitter for the most part. And the main reason I like Twitter is it kind of suits my mental space and how I think. And I'm kind of lucky in my 9 to 5, even though it's not 9 to 5. I have a lot of time, pretty much my entire shift. I can listen to anything I want, and I have a lot of reading time. So it's just kind of my way of archiving and keeping track of my thoughts, because there are only, so many excerpts from audiobooks or, digital archives you can save on your phone and have it be just this mess you could never go back to. And Twitter was a nice way to kind of organize things and keep somewhat in touch with the people I had made friends with over the year or so that I had done Radio Tartary. And yeah, so I stuck with that for a while, and um, had made friends with Karimo. Some of you may be familiar with him. And I just fell in love with his work, and there were just so many things that we had in common. And we just kind of started talking, and it took a long time. I mean, me and Karimo talked for years um, before we got together and did anything. And yeah, I've really loved what he's really honored my work, and and I kind of as like a um, prerequisite to the whole thing is I just share stuff that's interesting, and it's not all stuff I agree with, you know, and I think in this community people get a little too hung up on um, sticking with people that maybe only exactly fit their congruent concept or their feelings at the moment. And this whole tartary, I hate to use that as the kind of catchphrase for this hidden history, buried past type of situation, but it seems to be kind of dwindling as far as people continuing to look for new and exciting and um, I don't want to say relevant, but um, continuing to turn a new leaf and um, yeah, keep digging, and try to move past, um, you know, looking at cool buildings all day, or well, there's nothing wrong with that, but it was getting stagnant for me. And yeah, one day I randomly, how the algorithm works, sometimes it's to your detriment and you get stuck watching mindless drool for, a few hours. But one night I got um the algorithm put Longo's Atlantis documentary in front of me. And yeah, it was amazing. And it had just happened to be like that same week I had been so uh for like a year I had been creating folders based on state, and I was going to do these Twitter drops with threads on every state and just organize everything by state. And I had happened to be working on Florida when I came across Longo's work, and how could you not fall in love with it? I mean, look at all the amazing people, and the his channel's just blown up, and yeah, the lives are so fun, and the people calling in, it's just crazy. And that's obviously because he's really hit a thread. He did for me. And yeah, it's just crazy because these people I've made friends with over the years, it's like amazing how, the Tartaria narrative, or whatever you want to call it, has brought a lot of really amazing new ideas um into my view. And Longo would probably be one of my favorites in a long time. For those of you who saw episode one, um, with 13th Monkey, he's a good friend of mine. That's inappropriate, Longo. Why don't you jump in here? Longo's back finally. Um, you're on mute.
No, that was a great intro.
I'm just rambling, filling airspace.
I
But
think
yeah,
you.
episode one was 13th Monkey, and we've been friends for years and years. And he's really somebody I call a friend. And hi- his work has gone so unnoticed. And he kind of falls in the same category as me. Like, he has just such a, not to toot my own horn, but a really really amazing body of work, and he's done things that really nobody else had done, at least to the extent that he's done. And like, yeah, so I felt like he was a perfect first episode for me, because there's no broader view of what my new series is going to be about than looking at it from as high up as you can, and really showing from the most outer limits the scope that we're dealing with. Like, there is an architect, and this realm is a construct, and just about all parts of it have been molded in some way, shape, or form. And so I just kind of wanted people to go into this series with that, you know, that state of mind. When you get too focused on something, or you're getting conflicting ideas, to just zoom out and think of, like, the realm we live in, and how magical and crazy, and all these things it is. And then we just kind of slide into these episodes. And yeah, so I wanted this to be, one of the first ones, and it just so happened, me and Longo had been trying to get another episode together, and yeah, it just worked out. So yeah, you all know who um my second episode guest is. Um and if you don't, this is Dr. Longo. He started Old World Florida channel. Um I don't even know where to start. Um what would you recommend for your first video? It's like a good intro, honestly.
The Sacks or Stones
Same.
is
So that was the
pretty
video.
good.
Yeah, that was the video that I first saw. That's what the algorithm put that video in front of me. That's the one I was talking about. I should have given the title. I said the Atlantis video, but for those of you who know Longo's work, you probably could have um, connected the dots there. But I would agree,
Mhm.
and I think the video you're working on now is going to be right up there with it. Don't you think?
Yeah, it's gonna be more of like an edit,
Yeah.
rather than me going out in the field. I have actually don't film anything. I'm gonna basically going to be it's all just an edit, but it's going to be over 3 hours long, probably, at least.
And everyone loves. That's the thing that's so great about it, is that you can find a subject like the tree video where you had all these crazy synchronicities and you're able to like actually go out and do it physically and make a video around it. That's great. But I think the edit's going to be fantastic. And is there any like little hints that you're willing to just talk about, stuff that we've already covered?
Yeah, it's about the Greek and Creek connection that I've been touching on in some of my videos, and some people have kind of ridiculed that connection and have kind of thought that it's just a linguistic leap, right, from Creek to Greek. Well, that's truly not the case. When we have newspaper articles, I'll just say this: the Greek presence in Americas, ancient Greek presence in the Americas, especially the Southeast United States, aka Creek territory. Ancient Greek presence can be confirmed, absolutely proven, right, with not only linguistic evidence, but architectural,
archaeology,
culinary, or through the food, agriculturally. It can be proved musically. Musically, it can be proven. And I'll give a brief, how's that? There's melodies, Greek melodies, that were forgotten in Greece, but retained in late 1800s, early 1900s Florida. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And I was going through a bunch of articles getting ready for the show, and I was going through all the Florida mound ones, and it's amazing how many Roman numerals were on artifacts found in Florida mounds, and that's pretty uncommon. You'd be hard pressed to find anybody that's read through as many newspaper articles, but especially mounds, because I went on a like 4-month, 5-month binge of mounds and giants, and I think I've found I'm probably at about 95% of all the published mounds articles, and there's very few, and the majority of them are on the Gulf, Roman numerals. And another big one that you didn't mention, the pottery.
Yep, pottery. Genetics. I didn't mention genetics either. Genetically, it's proven. The linguistic traces is evidence, but the genetics is proof. And I'm not, a big DNA proponent, but when it's coming from a DNA, a researcher, a geneticist who himself is part Cherokee, himself part Scottish and part Jewish, and went looking into how and why.
Sounds like me. Are you talking about me?
And then received a extreme amount of ridicule and death threats from not only the quote unquote native community, right, for questioning their heritage, but also lots of people, right? Yeah. And so you can tune in. Greek video coming soon. I'm not finished with it, so no date, but yeah.
And originally I was thinking like we'll try to get this video together after you come out with that, but that just seems silly because I'm sure we'll do plenty along the way, and I really didn't want to wait. And meeting Longo has been instrumental in me putting this whole channel together and getting back into the groove, at least, of trying to pursue some form of I don't know. I don't want to say podcasting, but just I don't know. This, I suppose, getting together with people that are like-minded, and just putting my opinions out there and all the years of research, and hopefully there's people that are interested, and it seems to be going pretty well. And it's been amazing. The comments have been amazing, and I'm just it's great. It's
you're doing great. People love it.
I was super nervous, and you've been, Longo's been nothing but amazing behind the scenes and helping me feel a little more confident about it. And you know, um, as a father and a husband, um, I'm like I said, I'm lucky I get to do research and at work because I have almost no free time. And we talked a little bit. Longo was joking around a little bit and being candid about me being a cancer, but he really did hit the nail on the head with a lot of those things. And it is very selfish the time my wife allows me to do these things, um, and the possibility of this being something, that not only could be my passion and that people would be attracted to it and enjoy it, and learn something, but most importantly, enjoy it. Because if you can learn something and enjoy it, that's like what I'm going for. And maybe one day have this be what I do to provide for my children would be amazing, but I always kind of was hiding behind that. It just seemed like something I couldn't achieve. So yeah,
Mhm.
I'm just gonna go for it and F it, and let's just see
Oh.
what the future holds. But yeah, so enough of me rambling and getting sentimental kind of. And so Longo, I'm grateful for you, and yeah, it's been amazing. And like I was telling you about that interview I had with the higher side chats, I know you weren't too familiar, but that's my number one go to podcast over the last few years, for a long time, actually, since like he basically started. And I always used to talk to my only physical friend that I can talk to openly about these things. You have your brother, which is amazing. Just
Mhm.
having somebody close to you physically that you can be open with is so special. And I know there's a lot of people out there that don't have that, so they look to the internet. And so my close friend, um, he was a listener too, and he was also like you, telling me like, man, you should just really put, this is something you're good at. You should just invest your time into that. And I just ignored him for so long. And yeah, and then I got invited onto the podcast. And if you're familiar with the podcast, he does these amazing intros. And my friend and my physical real life friend would tell me like, well, one day he could have an intro like that. And so, anyways, yeah, the higher side chat guy is moving to Florida. I know he told me that, and um, hopefully he'll have Longo on his show because that'll be mind blowing. Just listening to he's interested, so I'm sure it won't be long. Um,
Awesome.
yeah. So yeah, I'm just rambling at this point, and yeah, I didn't. I just realized that on episode one, I probably should have had a first episode where I kind of talked about myself a little bit more. But maybe that's a little silly, but
Nah, people know
but
who
yeah,
you are.
yeah. So I'm grateful for everybody being here, and I'm Longo for you, especially because I wouldn't even be doing this or starting any of this if it wasn't for you. And so yeah, why don't we get into the juice that brought us together in the first place and kind of kick the whole thing off and give the people what they're here
Mhm.
for. Um, how about we
Alrighty.
start off with some of the material that you were wanting to present, and then we can just go through it and go from
Sure.
there.
Yeah. For
If that's okay.
sure. Yeah,
Let's
I've
do it.
got some cool stuff that I haven't gotten around to showing on my channel, but is very interesting. And I guess we could start with today. I just found this today and sent it to you.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
Let's start here for sure.
so Ben's always sending me stuff, articles. That's his whole thing. The archivist, right? And I actually subscribe to a newspaper myself, the Tampa Bay Times and its subsidiaries. So I've been going through a lot of stuff like that, especially trying to dig into like the Greek history. And there's just a lot of gems in there. And a lot of times, I'm sure you've seen this, like you'll be on a page about something like the Greeks, and then boom, not even the keywords you were looking for.
Yeah.
Next article over,
Hmm.
it's like flaming
Hmm.
spring water that's on fire.
Yeah. I can't tell
Hey.
people. Yeah, I kind of got. I've been kind of called out before about that I only use keywords, and I was like, listen, you spend enough time in these papers when you get something really good. I clip the entire paper because about 50% of the time on that same page, there's going to be something else like worthwhile. It may not be the same subject matter, but it'll connect down the road or to something previous, just like
Yeah.
you said. And no one will understand that unless they've spent time in these papers. It's weird. They just like are magnets. These
Hmm.
these these thoughts are like magnetic and they find each other on the page.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. The
Yeah.
amount of juicy material on a pre-World War One, uh, you know, front page of any of these newspapers.
Oh, Tampa, I can only imagine. Yeah, so I remember when I first started sending you clippings, it was, people were kind of like caught off. They're like, meh, it's like newspaper clippings, like Karimo was the same way. And after a
Hmm.
while, you're just like, whoa, it's like you're hard pressed to find a book with material like these newspapers. And once you get in there, Longo's sending me as many clippings as I send him now. He's finding some unbelievable stuff that I know will be in that Greek video. So, of course, stay tuned for that. But yeah, what do we got?
Yeah, I'm not always the keywording. I'll usually just go for like image searches and branch off from there.
Yeah.
But okay, so here's a really cool one that I found. This is from Florida. Anastasia Island is northeast Florida. History of the Burning Spring, Anastasia Island. One of the wonders of the world. So isn't that interesting? Let's see if we can get a date on this. No date. Discovered in 1893, but no date on this, and I didn't clip it from a whole page. I just saw this popping out. But I'll read it. History of the Burning Spring, Anastasia Island. One of the wonders of the world. And I'm going to be making a video called like the Seven Wonders of Florida or the Ancient, something like that. I'm going
Yeah.
to make
Love
a
it.
list.
There's so many
Make
good
my,
ones.
yeah. Peruse at leisure. The The waters of this wonderful spring contains iron, magnesia, sulfurated hydrogen, sodium, and other minerals and qualities of medicinal nature, as well as the peculiar quality of being inflammable, as it will ignite and burn like alcohol by simply touching a lighted match or taper to the water. Wow. This
Yeah.
peculiar water was discovered in 1893 by parties boring for an artesian well, and at 120 feet struck a mineral flow which was so strong they were flooded out and obliged to abandon it. After flowing away for 2 years, the mineral and burning qualities of it were discovered, and it was piped from the well to its present location and placed on exhibition. A fire that will burn but not consume. Oh my God. You ever see like in the movies where they have their swords on fire or people dunking into flaming water, you
Yeah.
know?
Some of these caves had flames like this.
Oh,
And
eternal flames. Yeah,
and
yeah.
and they would go as far as to say if it was far enough along in the history, late 1800s, they would be like, it seems there's some natural gas that they're burning. And then if you go far enough back before that was like, commonplace, they're just like this flame that no one knows what it's burning off of. There are tons of them. I have articles, probably 5 or 6. There was a few caves in Mexico where they found flames that had been burning they estimated for centuries because there were stalactites that were formed near and around, and the flames were still burning in a similar sense
Mm,
that they created no heat. And for this reminds me of that St. Elmo's fire that we talked about with Paul. Remember when I
hmm.
mentioned that? It
Yeah.
was they described the same thing. Snowstorms. There are articles of snowstorms in the 1800s where the fence posts and the steeples would glow in a snowstorm, which is interesting, right? Because it's snow. You'd
Right.
think with the moisture, and yeah, it was cool to the touch. It was just crazy.
Wow.
Um, and it makes
Yeah,
you
can
think
it,
like where they piped it. They got rid of it all, and or where did it go, and what did they do with it?
like I said, I found this today, sent it to you, and now we're reading it.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna do some digger deeping on. What did I just say? Deeper digging on this.
And you know what's
Can I?
interesting about the Anasazi?
Oh,
Honest. Have you ever heard
okay.
of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Anasazi? It's a
No.
people in the Pueblos that some of these
Ah.
articles we've read about, the emperor or the king Tigrinus. You remember that one
Hmm.
where they found that red-headed giant, like 4 levels below the Pueblos? That's in that
Of
same
course.
area.
Of
And yeah, the
course.
Anasazi. It stood out to me when you said Anastasia. It's the same thing, just spelled a little bit differently.
Yeah. Oh, in German, the T and the S is connected in a taz. Yeah. But
And I
can I
cut you
read
off, so go
this?
ahead. Yeah,
That's all right. I'm going to read this last bit.
please.
A fire that will burn but not consume. Handkerchiefs of the finest texture may be passed through the fire without leaving a spot or stain. Isn't that amazing? The
Yeah.
most wonderful sight I ever witnessed. Erastus, that's a name. Erastus women. Esquires, something. ESQ. I don't know what that's short for. Staten Island. Don't fail to see it. Situated at South Beach, Anastasia Island, St. Augustine, Florida. So not South Beach, Miami. But
Yeah. Don't get it
yeah.
confused.
Well, how's that one? That's some pretty dang crazy, right?
Oh man. I mean, I know you're gonna look into that too, but man, I'm super interested.
Um, here we go. I'll just flip through a bunch here.
Yeah, please.
So I think most people watching right now are probably familiar with the Saxor stones, the stone anchors. But if you're not, and I've got new pictures of them. Can you see that pretty good?
Oh wow. Yeah. 3 of them.
Yep. So this, I believe, west coast of Florida. Could be wrong. This is St. Petersburg for sure. Pinellas County.
Pinellas County.
Pinellas County. Yep, we're gonna look at that in a sec. Pinellas.
Maybe if you remind me, we'll talk a little bit about Arizona too.
Uh huh.
Penal County, Florence.
Yeah. Uh huh. I watched their sheriff on YouTube. Pinal County. Penal. But you see, this one, these ones have such good rope marks. It's crazy.
Hmm.
Right here, boom. That's a great. You see that rope mark where it's been cutting, grooving down on one edge,
Hmm.
one of these holes.
Yeah. Once you get a groove going, it just stays in the groove and it just cuts through it
Hmm.
even faster.
Yeah, files it down
Yeah.
right there too. You can see almost like the waffle pattern on top of these, the rope marks going into the
Oh
holes.
yeah. 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 Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, like they were situated in the same place. So like the ropes were just
Hmm.
because some of them, like you stated, some were probably carried on ships and others were like the multiple hole ones. Odds are those could have been like anchor stones, right? Like
Hmm.
placed specifically someplace, like a mooring stone, as you said.
There's some that could potentially be mooring stones, but almost all of them look like they've been underwater,
Yeah,
and
true.
most of them were pulled out of the water
Hmm.
around the 20s. But I think most people watching have seen like the other pictures I've shown, the more I don't know famous ones that I showed in the Saxer documentary. Well, I wanted to show you guys something. Um, if anyone knows in the chat, you're gonna have to fill us in. Basically, this was either like Kim Kardashian or fucking one of those, soulless supermodel, whatever. Look at this
Whoa!
purse.
What the
Look at this
heck?
purse design. What? You all good?
Wow!
Look at that purse design. And this is like within the last couple of weeks. This
Amazing.
is like high fashion right? You've got all
Mhm.
this Atlantis stuff coming out of the woodwork, Graham Hancock, and blah blah blah. I just thought that was very interesting, and of course, I'm gonna look at this and think stone anchor. What do you think when you look at this?
I think the same thing.
Pretty weird, right?
Yeah,
Why?
the fact that it's
How
like a
much?
rope instead of like a strap.
Yes. How much
I
do you think
mean,
that bag's worth?
I have no
5,000,
st-
15,000, fifty
mm,
thousand
a
on
lot
the
more
run
than it should be.
on the runway. Well, I just
Well,
thought that was pretty trippy.
no, I think that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole, co-creative thing. Once you start seeing something,
Hmm.
it's crazy. It's almost like the world molds around you.
So let's see. What else do we got? We talk about the Ottomangian. Uh, maybe we'll swing back around to that. Here's a good anchor, possibly an anchor. Looks like there's some
That's a big
big.
boy.
Yeah, I love how they blurred out their eyes too. It's hilarious. But
I thought you did that.
no, they did.
That's weird.
But the way you can really, if sometimes hey, limestone does some funny things, and sometimes you see those Swiss cheese looking holes, but the rope marks are what give it away. When you see a rope mark heading straight for one of these holes, I mean, that's not just one use of them pulling it out of
Oh yeah, it's
the.
thousands.
That's yeah, that's use over and over and over again to
Yeah.
have the worn down holes like this. Now, okay, here's something really good. Here's something really good that you guys are gonna like. So we were just looking at some anchors, right?
Hmm.
Well, I had a subscriber by the name of Andrew, I believe his name is Andrew. Yeah, I won't dox him like I do with some of my other subscribers, but Andrew sent me this, and basically, this is I think Central Florida. Now, just take a look at this, and remember, I allege that many of these stones with holes through them are stone anchors. Some people disagree. Well, for those that disagree, take a watch at a video like this. So let's. Did you catch that?
Hmm.
So let's just watch this back. Here is a old Navy anchor,
Yeah, right next to it.
giant old steel, I assume steel anchor, and then we have an
Yeah.
ancient stone anchor.
Hmm.
So giant anchor,
Giant anchor.
giant stone anchor, right?
That's great.
With the perfect rope mark right there, the rope groove going into
Hmm.
the hole.
Yeah.
Yeah, looks like two rope grooves going
Hmm.
in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Good angle there.
isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. In plain sight,
Yeah. And then I've got this. I only briefly showed this in my fertile crescent video, but this is a orange juice advertisement coming out of Florida, Crescent City, Florida, right? Crescent, like the fertile crescent, the Moorish crescent symbol. All these things. Well, crescent moon, of course. But what's so interesting is that for some reason, it's calling this juice more juice. MOR, more juice.
Yeah.
So Moors, crescent, that's an Islamic correlation. That's a
Absolutely.
that's
And,
a Moorish correlation. More juice tend to call oranges were introduced to Europe by the Moors.
yeah. And where do you find oranges? All over
Mhm.
Portugal and Spain and France.
Yeah. Do you know what the word for orange in Greek is that my friend told me? Speaks Greek.
I told you once too. I read
Oh
it,
yeah, you
but I
probably
can't
did.
remember. It was
Porto Cali,
yeah,
Porto
Kali.
Cali,
Yeah, because
which
you
so
mentioned that.
it's Kali, which is like the black goddess, but it's also Portugal. Portugal. It's the port to the Celtic
Kali.
lands.
Yeah,
Yeah, Kali as well. Exactly, the port to Kali.
yeah, absolutely.
So,
And the only other places oranges grow, at least
hmm
well. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and we mentioned this a little bit, but a tiny little bit on, and I unfortunately don't have anything thread-wise ready to go, but I'll have to talk about this on another show. We mentioned Norumbega. Remember that place
hmm
with all the linguistic ties to Norway? Um, yeah, and I showed that on maps. It's a bridge over two waterways, and it's like an exact representation of the Disney castle.
Yeah, and
And
on some maps, Norumbega is right next to Florida, and there's no
it,
peninsula, and
boom, yeah,
there's no colonial northeast. It's just
correct.
Norumbega to
Florida.
Florida.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're connected. And in some of the newspaper articles, they mention the produce they
hmm
grew around there. They grew almonds and they grew oranges.
hmm
And another funny thing, which we've mentioned off air, but we never said on here, was radium. When they put radium with other minerals and crystals,
Yeah.
crystals would often take on an orange color.
hmm
Crystals that were more of a opaque or a white or a clear, like they would turn orange, and they would hold that color for a long time. And um, this reminds me of what we started showing about the radium springs,
hmm
and some of these springs that they were testing were right next to these huge orange groves. So
Yes.
there's no coincidence. I think
Liquid
these
sunshine.
oranges, exactly, boom, their oranges are absorbing not only sunlight but the radium in the
hmm
um, in the water. And this correlates as well with what we had also mentioned. And I don't want to say too much because you may talk about it in your Greek video, but the tobacco.
Yes, I'm going to be talking about the tobacco. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
some.
we'll leave it at that, kind of a cliffhanger. But tobacco and radium are related.
hmm
And yeah. So, anyways, keep going with your article.
Well, you brought up oranges. I set this one aside to talk about with you. I did not include this in my oranges video or many of my Moorish stuff yet, but it's going to be in the Greek video. But this article, so I've talked about how in the 1500s when they came to Florida, they brought citrus with them on the very first voyages. When they left and came back 50 years later, the natives had already adopted citrus, sweet orange, lime.
Citron. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this means that in order to get all those varieties, you have to be not highly skilled, but it's a unique,
It's an art.
yeah, it's a unique process
Hmm.
to cultivate citrus
And
because
hybrid. Yeah.
exactly
Hybridizing takes time.
you're usually what's it called, grafting.
Hmm.
And this was not typical, like an typical agricultural process, as far as I know, to what we're told are the native
Right.
Floridians.
Yeah. Of course.
So obviously that whole story could be flip-flopped. But within the mainstream narrative, we're told when the Europeans came back that the native Floridians had fully implemented citrus and that it was actually growing wild in many locations. And there's a lot of debate about whether the orange can grow wild in Florida. I'm going to be doing another video on that soon because
Excellent.
the sweet orange is allegedly entirely dependent on human cultivation and
It's like they found
can
wild oranges
yeah
in California and said the same thing.
cannot occur in the wild allegedly.
Yeah.
Sour oranges can, and some smaller like tangerines can that get orange and people might think this is an orange, but the sweet orange, the common orange that we know that you like the navel and Valencia are like varieties of is not is not does not occur in the wild. So people say, oh, there's no way citrus could be native to Florida. Well, it's actually, the orange technically is not native anywhere. It's always been dependent where humans go. It would only ever be found where humans are. It would never be found out in the forest, right? So
It's like the avocado. Do you
I don't
remember
know. I don't know anything about the avocado.
when we first met? I sent you an article about the avocado,
Hmm.
and they said it was one of the most obvious um, hangover um, things from Atlantis, and that
Leftover.
the natives, because it was a completely hybridized food.
It's called
And
alligator pear is another name.
exactly, it's called the alligator pear, and they called
Hmm.
it the Atlantean alligator pear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the locals had said it had been around since time immemorial, and it had been created for them by the gods. And oranges have been found, and not necessarily in the fossil record, but they've been known to have been cultivated all the way up to near Boston, New
Mm.
Jersey, New Jersey area. And when we were talking about Norumbega and the fact that they were raising oranges, way up where the supposed location of Norumbega was, which is kind of in that area, Chesapeake area. If you remember a long time ago, I shared with you that article that they were excavating for the railroad in New Jersey, and they dug up that 30-foot alligator,
Hmm.
and underneath it they found that Arabic coin, and it just correlated everything with like what you've been showing, the giant alligators,
Hmm.
the Moorish Arabic correlation. Um, when you look into New Jersey and Atlantic City, the big buildings there were all Moorish buildings.
Yeah. The
Um,
casinos and stuff too.
yeah, and we talk about Trump's obvious interesting correlations. He has many, many, many. King Rurik being one. The quote Muslim or Arabic Russian prince. His code name was Mogul, which again is like Khan. It's a title of kingship. It also means mound.
Hmm.
His correlations with Florida obviously are endless. Anyways, before we get too off topic with that, but yeah, Seers of Arcadia. Get in with this article.
So, oranges noted in 1773 investigation of Florida. This comes from a student of Florida history who has contributed many valuable articles to the Pioneer Florida series. Marvin H. Sears of Arcadia, right?
Oh,
Sears of
Seers.
like
That's great.
a seer, a Caesar.
Yeah.
Marvin H. Sears of Arcadia. On several occasions, I have read articles published in the Pioneer Florida series relating to the early culture of orange trees in regions of the state not now considered safe for them. It is my firm belief that the Journal of William Bartram will furnish the reader with some of the best information relative to any and all plant life native to Florida. Bartram, as you know, was sent to America to gather botanical knowledge and to make notes for Dr. Fothergill of London, botanist to the king, and a fellow of the Royal Society. In his journal, right, so guys that don't know, the Royal Society is kind of like England's Smithsonian.
100%.
And it's not just England, it is like an international entity as well. But
And you had to be on, you had to be really sleuthing and going into the middle of nowhere and finding good shit to even be accepted into the group, And
mhm,
if you spoke out, if you said your honest opinions too many times, they would just you weren't allowed. You weren't in the club. And all of these, here's how they had it. They had a hold on everything, just like today with modern archaeology, right? If you get out of line, they just pull your funding because all of these people
mhm.
were funded by the societies, which were controlled by the crown. Sorry to hop in there. Go ahead.
No, all good. Bartram, in his journal, Bartram makes mention of his first view of Florida, orange trees, just a few miles above the Cowford, now the city we know as Jacksonville. I quote from the journal: I crossed the river to a high promontory of woodland on the west shore, and being struck with the magnificence of a venerable grove of live oaks, palms, and laurel, Magnolia grandiflora, and I stepped on shore to view the place. Orange trees were in full bloom and filled the air with fragrance. The above quotation, it appears, from the above quotation, it appears that the orange trees was there's some bad grammar in here. From the above
Yeah.
quotation, it appears that the orange trees were growing in a wild state here in Florida as early as the spring of 1773. So, oranges wild in Florida in the 1700s. Suck my balls, whoever thinks Columbus brought them over. But blah, blah, blah. The first plantation seen south of the Cowford or Jacksonville provided a stopping place for Bartram, who writes, I spent the day in the most agreeable manner in the society of this man of singular worth. He led me over his extensive improvements, and we returned in company. With several of his neighbors. In the afternoon, the most sultry time of the day, we retired to the fragrant shades of an orange grove. The house was situated on an eminence about 150 yards from the river. On the right hand was the orangery, consisting of many hundred trees, natives of the place, and left when the ground about it was cleared. The trees were large, flourishing, and in perfect bloom, and loaded with their ripe golden fruit. A few miles south of Fort Piccolata, Bartram stopped at an Indian village and found a rather large orange grove there. Indian village, large orange grove.
Yep.
There was a large orange grove at the upper end of their village. The trees were large, carefully pruned, and the ground under them clean, open, and airy. I was rather surprised to learn that orange groves had been planted as far north as 8 miles south of the present city of Jacksonville. It hardly seems possible that the trees could have survived the freezes and the heavy frosts that Jacksonville encounters in some of the winters. Even more surprising than the record cited by Mr. Sears from Bartram's journal is the quotation which I recently presented from a reliable historian that orange trees were in cultivation near Charleston, South Carolina in 1700. Just like you said, up the East Coast, pretty far.
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of lightly touched on the giant alligator and the coin thing, but also what I was referencing is we're looking at a very different climate, I think. Not very long ago. Wouldn't you agree?
It kind of seems like it. I mean, that would alter a couple of my timelines, but
just bringing it a little bit closer, I suppose.
I think Florida's been stable, and I think other places
Agreed.
have come closer to a subtropical climate.
Yeah,
especially
because Alaska, and I mentioned the Greek pottery, right? But they found Greek pottery in almost every state in the U.S. Almost every single one. And they found pictographs. They found helmets. They found Roman numerals. Again, the Roman numerals are predominantly in the Gulf area. But yeah, the Greek pottery has been found. There was a landslide in Alaska in the 1800s, and a whole side of a mountain came sliding down the hill. And in the mountain, they found a stone city. And in the stone city, they found, quote, the most magnificent Greek pottery they'd ever seen in the U.S. So, yeah, not that oranges were in Alaska, but there's tons of proof of tropical foliage in Alaska. Coral beds, tropical coral beds, because coral can exist in cold waters as well, but it's a different kind of coral. But yeah, so I'll off tangent there, but yeah.
No, that's great. I just have kind of some sporadic stuff We were
which is
talking about Pinellas earlier. I've never showed this, so everyone's getting an exclusive premiere right here. I've never shown this live. I've sent it to a few people that were interested, but here, what's the word for when you see shapes and things that aren't there? Like you see shapes in clouds and pareidolia. Is that it? Pareidolia.
I don't know if that's what it's. I think that's when you see things you're thinking about.
Exactly. Yeah.
Maybe that's what it
You see
is.
what
Yeah,
you want to see. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So, well, you guys tell me how much pareidolia this is. Okay. Now, you can see that pretty well, Ben.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, of course.
Okay. Right here is Florida. Right. Map of Florida. This little highlighted bit within that big open bay. That's Tampa Bay, that bay. This little highlighted peninsula within a peninsula is called Pinellas County. Pinellas County is home to a shit ton of ancient stone anchors. It's home to St. Petersburg, Florida. And this is why you have St. Petersburg, Florida, in the Gulf of Mexico. And you have St. Petersburg, Russia, in the Gulf of Finland, in the Baltic Sea. And the Gulf Stream goes Gulf to Gulf, St. Petersburg to St. Petersburg. And this St. Petersburg, I'm going to be comparing it to the pineal gland in shape and linguistically. Well, Pinellas County is the pineal gland. And I'm not saying that this is the pineal gland of the planet. Florida is the navel chakra of the planet. However, the navel chakra and the pineal, the third eye chakra, have a direct pathway between the two. So it would only make sense that we would have the pineal gland being represented physically in the topography of what is the navel chakra of the planet. So, pineal, Pinellas. Originally, this county, Pinellas County, was called Pinal County. Pinal. Pinal. Later, American people named it Pinellas. So, let's zoom in right here. Now, you guys tell me how much pareidolia this is, or whatever that word is. So,
And this is a zoomed in on Tampa Bay.
This
correct?
is zoom in on Tampa Bay. Yep,
Perfect.
where we're finding all these anchors. This is where we're saying the capital seaport of Atlantis is, and you're turning Florida just 45 degrees. You're not flipping it upside down or tweaking it. You're just looking at it like someone would approaching the Florida from the east side. So
Yeah.
here on the top here, we have this. Can you see my mouse as well?
Oh, absolutely.
We have this larger piece
Mm-hmm.
that will come and hang down to the left over the bay, a peninsula. Now on the left here, Pinellas County, the Pinellas Peninsula, it's a little bit more cropped out into the bay, and it has a deeper armpit underneath it, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see it's roughly the same exact shape on top here.
Yeah.
Now,
very, very, very close.
Now, right here you have the entrance to the bay. So this kind of grayed out area with all the lines going through it. This is water. This is the bay. This is open area. Out here is also ocean. So this is ocean. This is ocean, and the white is land. So I'm going to show you. This correlates to this, and now this bay coming up in underneath the peninsula is represented in the pineal gland right here. You see that coming
Absolutely.
up? It's
Yeah,
almost it's the precise angle,
Mm-hmm.
upward angle on both this and here, if you can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Now here's where it gets really exact. On the optic chasm, or however you pronounce that, chasm, optic chasm, and the hypophysis, the pituitary gland, this smaller peninsula here is represented by the optic chiasm and the hypophysis, however you say it, pituitary gland, right? And underneath that gland, you have another small bay jutting up into the landmass. That is represented right here as well underneath the pituitary gland. So for me, this is pretty dang eerie. I see the same shape being represented on both sides. And when you understand this is Pinellas County, and we're looking at the pineal gland, this is probably one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. So if you're
we could just talk for 2 hours about this.
now,
You're blowing my mind
let
because
me.
I don't. You go ahead. You finish, please.
Well, I just want to say, to bring a little bit more, the land of Peniel in the Bible, the land of Peniel. It's very interesting to note this is one of the only areas in the world where Amish people and Mennonites will vacation and pilgrimage. Scientologists have made Clearwater, Florida. So a large portion of this peninsula is owned by Scientology. So Mormons also come here. Mormons come here by the thousands to vacation. So Mormons, Scientologists, and even Amish people. The most Amish people you'll ever see in your life, you will see in this area on these beaches, down to Siesta Key, especially, which is just a little south of there, but same area. So that's the pineal gland, cross section of the pineal gland. And remember, this is just one cross section of one textbook. You could find another textbook that probably looks even more like Pinellas County. So what do you guys think? Pinellas County, pineal gland. It's like, you could make the argument that they look alike, but that's too much of a stretch. Well, when you compound it with the name with the name Pinellas and Peniel, I mean, come on, guys. And this is also St. Petersburg, Florida. St. Petersburg is correlating to Jupiter. Jupiter rules the third eye chakra.
Janus is Jupiter. Peter, he's the holder of the keys, the janitor.
Mm-hmm.
And the pineal gland is the gland of Janus. Yeah, I want to jump in with what I have to say, but I want you to finish for sure because I'll.
No, that's it. That's it. What do you have to?
Oh man. Okay, so absolutely amazing. You've shared this with me before, but obviously now is the time for me to really kind of let it sink in. First, if we just think about the language of ships and merchandise and birth and ark, right? We've talked about the ark being physical, being a ship, right? And the ark also exists in the mind. In fact, the pineal gland was called the ship or the seat or the captain. When the lights darken or when you close your eyes, melatonin increases and kickstarts your ship out of the body.
Yeah, go below deck.
Go below deck.
The one eye patch. Yeah.
Exactly, the pirate. Which again, Florida, synonymous with pirates.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah, holy smokes. That's absolutely crazy. And then this is bringing up
Tampa. This is Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is the home of pirates.
And how many articles did we go through Janus Landing? Yeah. How many articles did we go through? Yeah, shout out What the Flock TV. Me and Paul are friends. I call Paul a friend. Me and him have talked for a long time. Our posts have overlapped for years. He's fantastic. But yeah, we've talked so much about how so many parts of Tampa Bay are man-made. How could you think this could be coincidental? And when we talk about Janus and the one eye, if your eye be single, your whole body shall be full of light. Dream state, birth. Well, the pituitary is your sex organ captain,
Hmm.
the central
Captain,
steering,
yeah.
the captain seat of sex and childbirth
Hmm.
and conception. All of these things, conception, childbirth, and the sex organs are
Yes.
right there at the
The, th-
pituitary.
the third eye chakra
Hmm.
in the chakra system has a direct pathway with the sex chakra, the navel
Exactly.
chakra. So
Hmm.
Florida on the large scale is the navel chakra. The
Yeah, I wanted
fur,
to get into astrology a little bit before in
sure.
the show. Is there? Could you go a little deeper on that?
Um, so with Pinellas and Jupiter,
Yeah, yeah,
it
please.
ties in even more because you have Jupiter, Florida, you
Hmm.
have St. Petersburg, Florida,
Hmm.
and then Juno Beach is the wife. Juno brings Janus to mind. They used to think that June came from Janus, but Janus is January.
Hmm.
June is Juno. Well, Juno is the wife of Jupiter. Janus is almost like the brother, twin brother, dark cousin, uncle, so to speak. Um, but also with Noah and all these ark stones in Tampa Bay, you've established Janus, and Noah is also Noah. And it's no coincidence. John Saxer believes this is where much of genetics was being done in the Tampa Bay area, was a fish hatchery.
Yeah.
Wasn't that was one of the first things John Saxer caught on to, was kind of like the wildlife in the area as well. That some of these springs are some of the brackish environments created by freshwater springs in the middle of salt water,
Right.
you know. And in the Greek video, I've got there's a spring a mile offshore up near the Flaming Spring I was just showing, up near St. John's area,
Okay.
a mile offshore from St. Augustine or New Smyrna. There's a spring in the ocean, freshwater spring, that pushes up with such intensity that a mile offshore you can put a bucket into the ocean and pull up 100% pure Florida spring water.
Wow.
So you're a mile out in the ocean. That's no conspiracy theory. I learned that from a New Smyrna historian at the museum, New Smyrna Historical Society.
Right.
And yeah. So, well, you said astrology. I'll talk about a little astrology.
Well,
Florida.
and for those who haven't seen our work already, we loop in a little bit of the shape of the Gulf, Cuba, some of that stuff into it as well.
Sure, the Fertile Crescent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. What do you think that as a symbol, Venus, and all that?
I mean, yeah, so Venus is your Venice, and this is why so many places are being compared to Venice in Florida. You have Tarpon Springs being called the Venice of the South, the Venice of Florida. You have a couple different Venices in Florida. Venice. You have a Venus, Florida. You have, so Florida is ruled by the sign Pisces. Each state is ruled by a different sign, right? Florida was created March 3rd, so it's ruled Pisces. And if you're saying, well, that's just a legal entity, well, thousands of years ago, the mounds are also arranged to the sign of Pisces. So on ancient, modern, it's the same. Florida's ruled by Pisces. And my cat's having a hiccup here. But within Pisces, Pisces is ruled by the planet Jupiter. So that's why Jupiter is so dominant in Florida.
Hmm.
Neptune, and this is Neptune's Poseidon, and this is the patron of Atlantis, the god of Atlantis, right?
Right.
And then you have Venus. Venus exalts in Pisces. So Venus being the third planet, there's only 3 planetary cities in Florida: Jupiter, Neptune Beach, and Venus. So for that to correlate like that is 1 in a trillion,
Yeah.
and it would only mean something to an astrologer. And luckily, the people. How do we know this? How do we know this was done intentionally or somewhat intentionally? Well, Florida was largely paved by spiritualists and occultists and metaphysicists who were kind of
Drawn.
who were thought to be businessmen, but under that businessman veneer, they were into some interesting stuff, to say the least.
Without a
And
doubt, they
and
always are.
they worked that into the fabric of Florida.
Yeah.
So you had a railway in Florida called the Celestial Railroad. That was a project that was being developed. It never came to full completion, and the only cities that stuck around are Jupiter, Neptune, Venus, right? Why those? Well, because it's astrologically ordained. That's just how it works out. And yeah.
And we talk about many times we've talked about the shape of the Gulf.
Oh yeah, sorry.
It can't be coincidental, right? It's shaped like a crescent.
It is the true Fertile Crescent, without a doubt.
And the Gulf Stream.
Gulf Stream it's Pisces, rules. It's a water sign.
Mm-hmm.
It rules rebirth because it's the last sign before death.
Yeah.
So all the old people come here to be rejuvenated or to prepare for death, prepare for rebirth. And with that shape, the Fertile Crescent, our 1936 Republican candidate for governor here in the state of Florida, E. Calloway, declared Florida to be the Garden of Eden.
Right.
He was not taking any of this iconography into consideration. He was just going off of the trees in the area and the wood,
the springs,
and bones of giants and stuff like that. So when you take that, and that was just one avenue of research that was largely driven by his love of the Bible. Well, when you look at all this like Moorish science and Moorish history and Moorish trace in the Southeast United States, that brings a whole nother angle to it, where they're saying this is a promised land and land of the Old Testament and land of life-giving properties, and all the athletes come from the Southeast United States, NFL, NBA. The Giants are still here. They're just on TV, And also you have, so that's, another community that's honed in on that, almost in this identical understanding, but still not touching on the specific fertile shape or the crescent shape. I think I might be the first person to to really put it out there that the Gulf of Mexico is not just shaped like a crescent, but is the Fertile Crescent. And that iconography of the star and the crescent, well, that also symbolizes Venus and the moon, the crescent moon. That's the sign of Taurus, the crescent moon and Venus. So Florida's Pisces, but if we're talking about the Gulf of Mexico, and the crescent moon is the bull horns, right? Crescent moon is the bull horns. And it's also a choker. So what's interesting about Taurus rules the neck. Taurus rules the neck. And what they tell you in the Southeast United States is that crescent on the South Carolina flag, that's not a crescent. That's not a Islamic, symbol. That's a gorget. That's a throat piece, a piece of throat armor. Well, the fact that it's around the throat also ties into the fact that it is a crescent, because that shape is also ruled by Taurus, the sign Taurus, which rules the neck. So it only makes sense that shape would go on your neck, right?
Absolutely.
And yeah.
And we've talked a lot about the Greeks and Minos.
Oh yeah.
And the god of the labyrinth. the bull-headed man, right?
Yeah, minus Minos.
Yeah,
You have a lot of Menorcans.
exactly. Yeah.
Menorcans from Minorca, Minnow, settling Florida in the 1700s. Most people don't even know that. Before America was even a thing, 10 years before America was even conceived, United States, you had a Greek colony in Florida in the mainstream history, just not in the talked about mainstream history, not in the history books, not in the school education.
And
Basic.
also, sorry, go ahead, please.
No, that's it. Um, Fertile Crescent. There's just so much to go off of. Crescent City, New Orleans, Crescent City, Florida, Crescent Beach, Tarpon Springs, which has a lot of these anchors in the surrounding areas.
And what else does Tarpon Springs have that you were the only person that has ever been able to show me this in the middle of the bay there?
And Follow Stone, a
Yeah,
big. I don't know what, because
lodestone.
I can only see it from pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, can only see it from pictures. About 100 years ago, it was actually a fountain. So what's funny is that a lot of stones were fountains, and Moses cracked a stone open, and out came a fountain. Flooded out a fountain, and this is actually right in the middle of a sacred bay
Mm-hmm.
that is used in a one-of-a-kind epiphany ceremony in America, where Greek Orthodox community in Tarpon Springs, the most Greek city in America, one of the most Greek places outside of Greece, right in Tampa Bay, essentially, right where we're looking at, right here, just north of Pinellas County. It's on this map, but just north. Pasco County, Pinellas,
Right.
Tarpon Springs, most Greek city in America. They have this ceremony where they throw a blessed cross, and it used to be a gold cross until they lost the gold cross at the bottom of the spring. And they throw this in sacred, blessed water. The boys jump in to fight for the cross. Whoever comes out is blessed, who's more blessed than everyone else. And in the old pictures, you can see pretty much right where the spring head is, and the spring is pushing up. You can see there's an old. It looks like concrete something. I mean, there's no granite in Florida. It was either limestone
Mm-hmm.
or something set on top of a pillar, something resting. It wasn't a float.
Nose
It
design.
wasn't floating. You could see that it was fixed in different pictures from different decades, but it was there, and it was gone by World War II, it looks like. And as far as what it was, well, all you need to do is look at Greek mythology, Greek culture, Greek tradition. I think Ben was the first person I'd heard use the term follow stone. I guess.
Yeah.
Follow stone. Yeah.
And it's really important because
because John Saxer has said that this was the umbilical cord of the planet Florida, the umbilical, and that's actually the same word as follow is umbilical, and that's not a Dr. Longo stretch. That's actually the true etymology of the word. Umphalos is a Greek way of saying umbilical.
No, it's not a stretch at all, because we're talking about the navel.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the pituitary gland, which controls the function of all the liquids going through the umbilical cord.
Yeah.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Another important thing to touch on while we're talking about the Omphalos stone. How about I'm going to share my screen really quick, and we're going to keep going over what you just shared there, but present. Share screen.
Minorca, Majorca. Yeah, we're going to be I'm going to be talking all about that in my new Greek video. Minorca,
We
Majorca.
don't want to go here just yet.
Minor, major. The minor keys.
Yeah, keep going, please.
The minor keys, the major keys, right? Um, R keyology, arc key, all right, logi.
Right.
But basically, Minorca and Mayaka. Ooh, Mayaka. I didn't even see that. That's a good point. Mayaka is in Florida. Majorca. Ooh, that's gonna make it. That's gonna make it into the video, Pedro. Good. Very good comment.
Yeah, that's a good
So
one.
Majorca is like the sister island to Minorca. So Majorca is minor and major. Well, yeah, it's no, and these are islands, little islands off the coast of the Iberian Peninsula. Well, off the coast of the Florida Peninsula, you have the keys. Keys, right? The notes. And then in Tampa, you have the tempo, perhaps, or the timpani. You have or the tom toms, right?
Yeah. And another thing before we move on and I forget. If you take Italy and you overlay it over Florida, Rome
Oh,
and Tampa Bay are right on top of each other. So we're talking about the shape of Tampa being a damn near perfect representation of the interior of the brain with the pineal gland, pituitary. And what do we have in Rome? I mean, everybody here is going to know, at least most of you. You have basically a temple to the pineal gland. You have
yeah.
the Go ahead.
Naples is almost precisely where Naples is too.
Yeah. We talked about that.
Naples,
And
Florida, Naples. Yeah.
right. And Tampa is full of an underground. Rome is full of an underground.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and on top of Naples being almost direct overlay with Naples of Italy, when you talk about Noah and Genoa, well, Genoa overlaps almost perfectly with where? Tallahassee.
Yep.
And where according to your Callaway, was it Callaway? Am I getting the name mixed up?
Yep. E.
Callaway.
Callaway. Yep.
Where did Noah's ship take off from in Florida?
Genoa. Noah would have taken off from Tallahassee area,
Right.
Apalachicola, Bristol, Florida is where E. Callaway lived. But yeah, Tallahassee.
Right. So Tallahassee overlaps with Genoa. And again,
Hmm. Noah's
although
Ark.
yeah. So I mean again, are we saying that's exactly historically what happened? No, but we've just now shown so many overlays that mirror each other so perfectly, or damn near
Yeah, and
perfectly.
think about Florida. You have Italy. Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Italy. Florida. Well, it's almost like Florida is the Florida, and then Italy is the Italy, right? The
Love it.
Fleur de they
Mm-hmm.
got the Dali, Italy.
And where's the Fleur de Lis? What's the Fleur de Lis city? Well, it's Crescent City,
Yeah,
New
yeah.
Orleans.
Yeah.
And on episode 1 of the Archivist, my guest showed um, just how incredibly man-made all of New Orleans is, and it's completely
Oh yeah.
constructed.
Uh-huh.
And we've postulated enough that the whole Gulf is like that. We breezed over the Gulf Stream, but for the Gulf Stream to flow the way it does, the design of Eastern Florida, the shelf that's made on Eastern Florida, channels
Mhm.
the water almost perfectly. So not only do you have the water coming out of the Gulf between the Keys, and Cuba, as we've pointed out and you've shown and said millions of times, the Kaaba, right?
Mhm.
This the the Phoenicians were a merchant society. Think of them like the first secret society. They were like a priest class on the water. Longo showed how the priests and the navigators of the stars stayed below deck during daylight hours. And that's great because The Mayans and the Aztecs had stories of their stargazers staying out of the sunlight and only coming out at nighttime. It was the same with the navigators. Now, why this is important is the Phoenicians, they had levels like masonry, and their highest level was Q,
Yep.
or the eye of the needle, as they called it. And the reason they used the letter Q was it represented not only the magnet or the compass, I'm sorry, but magnetism itself. So you have the Fertile Crescent, as he's saying, Taurus and Venus. You have the magnetic symbol, and you have the Kaaba of Cuba, the Kaaba stone, which we're going to get into, stones, sacred stones, lodestones, Janus, the two faces of magnetism. That's the sperm and the egg. And the monad, which is a sacred symbol and it's universal, found all over the world, is the symbol of not only the pineal gland, but the symbol of Janus and the impregnation of magnetic fields. Go ahead.
Sex chakra of the planet.
Exactly. Yeah, and we talked about the pituitary being the captain. That's the rudder or the wheel, right? The wheel of the sexual organs, as well as the spiritual. The seat of the soul, essentially, and a magical number to a few different groups was 47. I want to say the Brahmins, but that's not right. It was the 47th day was the day the soul took its seat, or the captain sat.
Can I interrupt you? Did you know that Ida is the mother of Minos?
No.
Minos?
No.
Ida, mother of Minos.
Interesting.
Ida.
And which just makes me think of positive and negative too.
Yeah. And the nurse of Zeus.
Yeah. The milkmaid. The maiden.
Yeah.
And 47 is 11, which is the two pillars, the two hemispheres, the two sides of the brain, man and woman, so on and so forth. So let's dive into this article for a little bit.
Oh yeah, I got some I want to present too.
Please, yeah. So I'll just kind of sum up some clippings here on what the Omphalos and these sacred stones. Something I didn't think we would touch on, but the first god of Atlantis, the first king, was a lodestone. And the shape of Atlantis, and these, everyone knows this, but no one connects it like this. The ring city is the monad. It's magnetism. So these ring cities, and there's many of them. There are, Atlantean style cities all over the world. There's not just one. Tampa, though, with the obvious overlay that he just showed there, man, pretty mind blowing. But yeah, so the sacred black stone of the Manchu dynasty of Chinese is Mukden, is the center of the universe, the monad. According to old Chinese superstitions, and added venerably, comes the Mukden from the graves of the emperors nearby. We've talked about the Chinese would build a pagoda over the grave of their kings. And the cypress tree was also held sacred to them, as well as the Scythians, as well as the Floridians. One of the largest cypress trees ever in Florida sat on top of a mound that had, I can't remember if it was a 9-foot, I believe it was a 9-foot giant. And the tree was huge. You remember, I actually have the article here. Largest cypress in Florida falls, skeleton at the base.
Wow, I need that one, man. Send me that one.
The lookout tree, a cypress, largest in Florida, has fallen 1896, 49 feet in circumference. At its base, an artificial sand mound buried many of their dead in the mound. Moore Haven, Florida.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
So we'll come back to this one because I'm going to bounce around too much. And where was
Send me that one, please.
I will, absolutely. So yeah, sacred to the Manchu, and one of these, actually, I'll try to get to the Scythian one. That's really interesting too. The Do Ring in Lhasa, Tibet, is an other center of the universe, which, according to Tibetan priests, is shaped exactly like the shoulder blade of a sheep. All
What the?
distances are measured from it, and it is very sacred. Another center is the Kaaba in Mecca, a dirty black stone let into the wall of the most sacred mosque and polished every year by the lips of thousands of worshippers. Now, in that clipping that Lonzo prepared about Pinellas, he showed on the top right, um, pilgrimage, and that's incredibly important. I think that has a lot to do with these things. We're drawn magnetically
Mhm.
to these places. Um, you've used that terminology a lot. People are drawn to Florida.
Oh yeah.
Polished by the lips of thousands of worshippers, the Arabic word for stone, hagar, appears in scriptural writings as a proper name. The Mecca pilgrimage is a hajj, and those who have taken it are known as haji. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong.
Hajis.
Hajis. Even so, saying a people as the ancient Greeks came pretty near worshiping a stone, the omphalos, or the center of the earth,
Think
at
about that.
Delphi. The Romans set
Mhm.
up a stone of great consequence in Rome. Okay, we're talking about Rome again. The overlays with the stone, the pineal gland. Remember, the pineal gland
Home and
is based off
phallus.
the stone tree. That's the actual name. The stone pine is the actual name of the tree, the pine cone. It's the
Hmm.
stone pine. No
Wow.
coincidence. And the stone pine, there's some planted in Florida, and there's some planted in California.
Hmm.
There's some planted in Rome.
Hmm.
But for purposes of measurement, not worship. And so the London stone of today is used. The Benben Omphale stone is the central piece of worship in many cultures. Above is the Benben of the god Amun. So Benben, which is a nickname that Longo has given me, and I've learned to love it. I actually have the Benben tattooed on me, and I have the pyramids on my shoulders. So Benjamin, right hand, right phase of the dualistic nature, the two hands, the two hemispheres. So two bends is the uniting of the two magnetic fields. Above is the Benben of the god Amun. Below is the Benben of Bablos, placed inside the temple, deemed the seed of life. We're talking about Cuba, the Kaaba, the Q, impregnating the sphere, the egg. Okay. The sexual organ that is Florida, that is the Gulf of Mexico, that is the Fertile Crescent. This thing is so multi-layered. It's absolutely mind-blowing. Deemed the seed of life, was the stone part of a comet that had seeded life on Earth? Now, remember that article where we talked about that
Chicks
author
Club.
uh, decoding the obelisk in Central Park, and the story
Mm.
was
Right. Right.
the
Yeah.
Egyptians landed. The history of the Egyptians is they landed in the Gulf of Mexico on a comet, on a
Wow.
lodestone.
Hmm.
So I know that's crazy, but you wouldn't believe how many cultures have this same story. They were seeded from the air on a magnetic stone. Was it the contents of the Ark of the Covenant, which is an
Mm.
incredible thing to think about. Depictions of two Benben phallus stones in Egypt. The Benben stone was deemed to be pointed and placed in relation to the deceased. In Greece, the Benben stone was named the Omphalos, deemed to be the center of the world. As we had already mentioned, it was conical, which is exactly what it looks like in your video where you showed Tarpon Springs. The Omphalos stone in Tarpon Springs looks just like this one here on the bottom right, if you can see my mouse. Yozer's step pyramid was the first resurrection machine, in quotations, to be built in ancient Egypt by the ancient Egyptians. I'm sorry. It expressed the belief that mankind's mission in life was to transform himself, which would warrant access to the afterlife, the abode of Osiris, beyond creation and beyond the physical universe. So yeah, this kind of covers a similar topic. This covers a similar topic. And like I was saying, the first king of Atlantis was just like what the Egyptian story on the obelisk is. The first king, just like the first king of um, the Greeks. And you have it in Tarpon Springs. Again, the monad and the benben, the two union, the union of man and woman, the egg and the sperm, the monad. You have it physically imprinted in the Tampa Bay, which is
Yeah.
just crazy.
And
And you wanted to jump in with something you wanted to say.
just on that one coin, you have almost exactly the black coin. Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what the one in Tarpon Springs, Spring Bayou looked like.
Yeah,
Spring
black
Bayou,
stone, black rock. People are
same
familiar.
exact shape, like that, like a little
Mhm.
nub.
Yeah, House of
Um,
God in Semitic,
and it only
sacred
makes
stone.
sense. It only makes sense that the naval one would be in the water, right?
Of course.
In the waters, suspended in the waters. This one was in Florida, but
Yeah,
in a Greek city. Like,
of course.
it's not like we're trying to say, oh, there's an Omphala stone in Palm Beach, Florida. No, this was in a like 95% Greek city.
Yeah.
That for some reason, and in my video you're going to hear I have a snippet of a Greek guy saying, "This is not Greece," or sorry, "Greece isn't Greece. This is Greece." He says Tarpon Springs is Greece. He said Greece, he says, is not what it used to be. He says this is what Greece used to be. He says uh, Tarpon Springs is stuck how Greece was in the 1850s. That's what they
Huh.
say today about Tarpon Springs. So
No
yeah,
coincidences. There just
Atlantis is a
can't be.
Greek myth.
Yeah, and those of you familiar with again Longo's work, he's covered a lot of this already. So, but it's really important to go over because no one's really talking about this stuff, and the correlations. Again, shout out Paul. What the flock. He talks about Janus a lot, and he's connected so many dots for me. But connecting it with the stones, and again, you guys, almost all religions are based off worshiping the stone, the lodestone.
Mm-hmm.
And when you really get into the mythos, we were seated by the stone. And what better correlation than to think about Tampa Bay and that little graphic you had?
Whoa, Tarpana. Sorry, this comment just
Oh, please, I
not
see it. It's
not
great.
knocked my socks off. Vedic
Yeah.
Sage, please call in later. We're gonna have to open up the. That's up to you. It's your show, but
No, no,
if
no, no. I said off air we should definitely do it. We have 30 more minutes, so let's leave the last
okay,
20 minutes to talk. So let's wrap up 10 minutes with
yeah, and Vedic Sage, if you could call in, that'd be great. Or hit
yeah,
me
that's
up on
fantastic.
Instagram. Tarpana, I assume that's Sanskrit or modern day Indian or something. But if you could fill me in on that, I would very
It
much
makes me think
appreciate
of
that.
baptism too. That's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Oh, dude, this is where they fucking the
Yeah.
water libation. This is where they have the Greek Orthodox water festival.
Yeah.
Water. They bless the bay. The people jump into the bay. There's a fountain there. That's where
And
the
the and the
Omphalos
and the
stone
Ben
was.
stone used to be
Yeah.
there, correct?
Yes. Yes. Amazing.
No coincidences.
No. That's
No.
conquistadors went up in that river and said this is a Holy Spirit river. The Holy Spirit.
No coincidences. And there's been a lot of videos circulating on social media showing animals circling, right? These
Yeah.
animal circles that are becoming,
I'm
kind of viral.
mesmerized.
Yeah. And me and you have talked a lot about this, but never really on air. And when you look at, um, time delayed video of Mecca, it's the same thing.
Hmm.
And, yeah, there's an article that I would love to bring up, but man, it's just way too long. We definitely don't have time for that. What did I want to work into here really quick? I can't remember. We're not going to get. I wanted to
I've
talk
got
about the. Please, please. I want you.
I've
You're
got a
the
little some
guest.
for
Please,
sure. Yeah.
please.
I got you. I've got something right here that my friend, good friend at this point, he came down to see me. Started chatting on Instagram. He actually lives in Seminole County, Georgia, which is right on the Florida-Georgia border.
Mm-hmm.
He's right next to Seminole Lake, which is where Callaway
Right.
and all the Garden of Eden stuff was being done.
Mm-hmm.
And so he actually goes and he actually runs a bobcat, like an excavator on private property, and he finds artifacts. He gave me some artifacts, and I won't dox him, but my friend Jeffrey, not my assistant Jeffrey, that's a different Jeffrey, but he has found artifacts there. Well, he sent me this little thing about that area, and let's pull it up right here. John Saxer talks a lot about not just the archaeology, but the genetics behind a lot of this and surgery that might have been being done in Florida with some of the magnifying glasses they have there and such. Let's look at this little guy.
Oh, okay. We'll have to get into the surgery stuff more because it really ties in with tobacco too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were using
River.
tobacco. Go ahead. Sorry.
This is cut off here at the top. He just sent me a snippet. River to the Jackson County shore from the top of the large Native American platform mound at Chattahoochee Landing. Known locally as the Indian Mound, this mound has been reduced in height and size due to erosion, but still is quite impressive. Originally, there were at least 7 mounds, right? 7 hills, with an 8th across the river on the Jackson County side. The
Love it.
large mound is only one that remains fairly intact. A few traces of the others can still be seen at Chattahoochee Landing, but the mound on the Jackson County side was washed away by the river. You can't wash away one of these mounds. Sorry, no.
No.
They're solid, essentially like mineralized, completely like mineralized, petrified.
They're like limestone now.
Shells, exactly. They've been washed with fresh water, ocean water, dirt, debris, everything's mixing in there, and there you go. It's pretty much going to be as hard as crappy cement.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever. During the Fort Walton period, 8900 to 1540, you could pretty much throw these dates out the window too. These mounds were part of an important ceremonial complex. Although archaeology at Chattahoochee Landing has been minimal, salvage excavations were conducted on the Jackson County shore as the site there was being washed away. They revealed the presence of a large village along the river bank, in addition to the burial mound there. It is assumed that the landing site across the river was a ceremonial complex for the river of the village. Here's where it gets very good. One of the more interesting finds was a human skull that revealed evidence the person had received brain surgery hundreds of years ago, probably thousands of years ago, but they're saying hundreds. So a square hole had been cut in the skull, but had started to grow back, an obvious indication that the person had survived surgery. Our generation sometimes underestimates the knowledge of ancient peoples, such as those who lived here along the Apalachicola River. In Dr. Longo's quotations, the Garden of Eden.
Mm-hmm.
Their mental capacity, however, was the same as the present generation, and their knowledge of many things was probably superior to our own, especially regarding nature, wildlife, etc. Our series will continue. So isn't that amazing? Brain surgery in the Garden of Eden.
Yeah. I'm going to have to give you that tobacco. They were mixing opiates with tobacco, and it would put the person into like a comatose state, and that's how they would perform surgeries. And, no coincidence we're in the tobacco capital of the, of North America.
Let me go get my computer charger.
Yeah, no problem. So while he's getting his charger, you guys, I'm going to read over an article that is incredibly relevant. I feel like since if I don't do now, I'll forget. So let's share my screen really quick here, and we're gonna hop over to Arizona, to Pinal County, Arizona, and share an article really quick. A handful of dust. It is all the remains of a prehistoric king, a valuable archaeological find in Arizona, evidently the tomb and remains of a monarch of an unknown age. Among the most valuable ever made in the American continent, from an archaeological standpoint, is the tomb of a prehistoric race recently unearthed at the village of Crittenden, Arizona, Pinal County. This is right in Pinal County,
Wow.
Arizona, right near
Yeah.
Florence, right near Florence. Okay, Arizona is like
Yeah.
the canal capital of the Southwest, this area, just like Florence. Florence, Arizona, Pinal County, Florence, Arizona, looked just like Florence, Italy. The workmen had penetrated some 8 feet below the surface of the ground. What they took to be stone of a soft, friable nature, but which was evidently masonry of a very superior workmanship, when they
Wow.
reached the tomb itself. This was composed of a large, square blocks of stone, which was identical as red or rose granite, and cemented together with such skill as to at first cause the whole measuring 12 by 15 feet to appear as a solid mass. The opening of this, while very difficult, as the use of powder was prohibited by Mr. Hendrickson, who, as a learned archaeologist, was placed in charge of the exhumation by the authorities, was accomplished by night, when the interest and curiosity of the party was so great that the work was continued by lamplight till dawn. The tomb, when opened, was found to contain a giant image of a man lying at full length and made of clay mixed with a sort of preparation which gives it a bright blue color and a slight elasticity, the whole appearing to have been subjected to great heat.
Hmm.
The features, I'm going to blast through this so we can get to getting some calls. The image represents the naked figure, except for a very tight girdle about the waist, a pair of close-fitting sandals, and a crown on the head,
Hmm.
very much like a bishop's mitre.
Yeah. Now I remember this one. Yeah.
But topped with the head of a hawk or an eagle. Jupiter bishop mitre. The features are roughly molded out of an imperious cast and of a man in middle age with a prominent nose and very wide mouth, but with cheekbones so low as to preclude all idea that the original could have been an Indian. The hands, which are so small as a woman's and bear on the backs the head of the bird as on the crown, are crossed on the breast and hold an image about 3 inches long of a squatting figure, probably that of a god. The feet are also crossed, the right representing the peculiarity of possessing a 6th toe, which the
Hmm.
sandal is cut to bring into prominence, as if the owner had prided himself on it. The hair of the image is dressed in thick curls on both sides of the head, reaching to the shoulders and brought down to the brow of the forehead. Careful examination of this clay figure revealed that it was merely the elaborate coffin of the real body, just like a sarcophagus in Egypt, and could be opened from the back. This was done with all possible care so as not to disturb the remains within. But a few handfuls of dust, dark brown and almost impalpable powder, was all that was left. I'm assuming. Sorry. The crown is of thick gold, carved with minute but well executed drawings representing battle scenes, triumphal marches, and other pictures, the meaning of which is somewhat misty. But in all, the principal figure is that of a man with 6 toe on his right foot. The workmanship of the whole crown is very fine, and the bird's head on top is a masterpiece worthy of Cellini. It holds in its mouth a magnificent chauchutis, or a green diamond, valued by the
Hmm.
Aztecs, which shows some attempts at laptification. The girdle found is composed of plates of gold arranged like scales and very thin, so as to give every movement of the wearer's body. On each of these plates, which is shaped a a crescent, is
Hmm.
engraved a figure or hieroglyphics conveying, however, no hint in their meaning in their form. The image of what is presumably a god is made of clay combined with the preparation spoken of before, and is also burnt thoroughly hardened. It represents a male being seated on a pedestal in a squatting posture, its eyes squinting and grinning in hideous mirth. while both hands are placed over the cars as if to shut out sound. Over the ears, my apologies. A peculiar thing about this image is that its hair is represented as hanging down its back in one long plate, like a Chinaman's, a queue. That's what that's called. The
Q.
figure is, yeah, which ties with the Manchus again. We've talked a little bit about that hairstyle, why it's called the Q is important. It was banned. You weren't allowed to do that anymore. You weren't allowed, and you see the Q a lot in Aboriginal cultures in America and South America. Fast forward, blah, blah, blah. It is probable that it was one of the antedating the Atzlan and even the mound builders, and superior to both a knowledge of masonry, sculpture, and the workings of metal.
You see this comment right here?
No.
Yucatan equals U from Mandarin Chinese, and Catan, which is setters or sword.
Love it.
U
yeah, Catan,
and
Katai. Yeah, that's great. And you know, me and you have talked a lot about this. I've posted tons about this, but I know not everyone in here is familiar with my posts, but I won't have time to share it. There was tons of excavations done all over Mexico. And when they got down 3 or 4 levels of civilization, they kept finding Chinese hieroglyphics. And this is like the predecessor to the Chinese language we know of today. It was kind of rough and more phonetic in a sense, more pictographic, conveying more in a symbol than, conveying more than one word in a symbol. But yeah, I wanted to share that because this is in Pinal County, Arizona, near a place called Florence. We're talking about the overlays between my 1-year-old wants daddy. We're talking about the overlays between Italy and not just Florida, but all of America. And you got a man who's predominantly showing in his burial his 6th toe, which if you study the 6 toes and the 6 fingers, it goes back to a peculiar bloodline of giants. And yeah, this guy's put in a clay sarcophagus, very Egyptian, hieroglyphics they can't decode, crescent moons all over him in gold, emeralds. Yeah. And they're saying themselves, this is far more advanced. As we keep saying on your show too, the deeper we go down, it gets more and more advanced. So yeah. Should we take some calls before we end? I know there's probably 1 or 2 more things you'd like to share before we do that.
Yeah, I can share. I'll share one more thing. No one's called in right now, so if anyone wants to call in, guys,
now's your chance.
You got to have Google Chrome though. So to click the link, you have to have Google Chrome. Not always, but usually for most people.
Yeah, someone said Aryan. I mean, me and you have talked about that a lot. The Aryan roots, the Chinese language as well as the Etruscan language, which Etruscan and the roots of Italy are pretty crazy. Both of these languages, you would think, right? Etruscan, Chinese, very different. Wrong. They are Finnish. So how is that possible?
Jeff,
what's up?
How's it going, man? This is Jeff. This is my boy Jeff, who came down and visited me. And
what's going on?
He's from Seminole County.
A Georgia boy, huh?
He's a Sagittarius.
Yeah, I'm sorry, y'all are lagging a little bit on my end.
Well, it's good to meet you, man. My whole family's from north of Atlanta, so.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. What's going on?
Man, that's interesting. Analog, you said something that's really intriguing to me is the further you go down, the more advanced they get. That's the same as just say any of these ancient monolithic structures. It seems the bottom base layers are always the most advanced or the largest stones, like the more mega structure type. And the top layer is a cruder, less advanced type of
chaos. Keep going.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I hear the kids back there. No, it's just it's funny to me how they can date these things that
keep going,
whatever they find, just say they find a stick or they find something they can carve a date, and there you go, that's the date. But there's no further research in it. A lot of these places, like even in America, below the lakes there, they don't really, you don't see no teams out there going and studying that. They think they already have it all. They think they have all the information we need to go ahead and put up plaques and put them all in the books and let the kids learn one narrative when there's hundreds and hundreds of stories that's happened, and different accounts from different, people and all types of points of views. We need to be opening people's minds up to how many different events happen in this country, and it'll make us all a lot closer in the end, if we just.
Yeah, we opened this talk with Longo mentioning these Royal Society, which is very much tied in with the Smithsonian. And just like modern archaeology of today, if you don't toe the line, your funding's pulled. That's just how it works. And that's how it was slowly taking over, and why I've become so fascinated with old articles, because you can slowly see it happening. You could have people excavating, kind of like what you're doing, with no oversight. They could find unbelievable things, and it would take a month or two before the Smithsonian could get somebody there to buy them out or threaten them enough to scare them. And then they just either wrote it off or stole everything or bought it all. Just like these societies in England, it's the same concept. And yeah, you're lucky to find, people like you that have the freedom to do this. And, but it's few and far between. And in the 1800s, it only took a few $1,000s to either buy the land or, buy the person's silence. And that's still happening today. They just scare people. You put your whole life into an archaeological degree, and then you get high enough up and you start working a site where you're really uncovering something, and you keep your mouth shut or you're done, and you'll never be on the dig again. So yeah, and the Cyclopean is always at the bottom. It really is. I mean, all of these major cities, Rome,
St.
Rome
Augustine
sits on top.
too.
Exactly. Rome in the 1850s, they had already mapped 900 miles of tunnels under Rome. 900 miles.
Oh, y'all, that brings tunnels. You mentioned tunnels.
Yeah.
I spoke with Mr. Brett Hemphill.
Yeah.
I asked him about a spring around where we're from. It's called Spring Creek. It splits Decatur County and Seminole County. I asked him if some of those springs have been mapped, and he responded. I'd like to read what he said. He was reading one of his friend's notes about what he wrote about the spring when they explored it. I think this was like in 1979 or something. So, do y'all mind if I read
Please.
it? I can't keep this screen open and my notes, so if I look like I'm cross-eyed, I'm just reading my screen. So
no problem.
All right. See if I can find it here.
Yeah, there's an underground in Rome, Georgia, says somebody in the comments. Yeah, there is. I went to a little, I wouldn't call it a museum, but it was like a welcoming center in Rome, and they had a huge plaque, City of Seven Hills. Rome has 7 hills too, Rome, Georgia.
Yeah. Was pretty significant. I asked him about those springs, and this is what he said. He said, I had to check my dive logs to see what I had wrote about those springs. I checked them in 1979 with back-mounted double 80s. That's dive terminology. I don't know what that means. And it says, I was only able to get in the cave at Yates, this Yates Springs is a privately owned spring there in the area. And I'll continue. It says, according to
Are you
still there?
Analog? I think he cut out.
Yeah.
Still there? Still there, Jeff?
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I'm still here. What did it cut off?
Yeah, just a little
I guess it times out. Okay, so Yeah, I was just trying to finish reading there. He says, but back then I wasn't side mounting tanks. If memory serves me right, I think Baxley and Blue Hole might be big enough to get in the entrance to side mount. I've never gone back to check them. According to what I wrote in my log, the entrance was small shaft about 8 foot long and little current. At the bottom of the shaft was a room about 12 by 22 with a duck hunter at 35-foot depth. The duck hunter led to another room about the same size where it looked like the tunnel had caved in. This was almost about 80-foot penetration. After reading what I wrote, I vaguely remember it. It may deserve a thorough search to see if I missed a way through the collapse. So there he's saying that it deserves a thorough research. Maybe he'll be diving in the area. So,
yeah, this is a guy, who's seen all kinds of crazy stuff.
I'm telling you, man.
Yeah.
He's got some amazing stories. He had a fellow there with him that was a basketball player for the Navy. I can't remember his name. I want to say it was Eric or Aaron. But he was, you want to talk about a giant? This guy was probably 7'2". And I guess he's one of his support divers that goes with it.
Yeah.
But I met them at Wakulla Springs. They were deploying the autonomous robot that he's been talking about. I didn't get to see it though. I had to work.
The articles from the 1800s about these caves are incredible. I mean, they were saying that not
where
only
are those caves again?
All over Florida.
Hey, thank you, John.
Oh, any of them? Yeah, man. Yeah. Y'all have a good night. I'll get off here.
No, not you,
thank
Jeff.
you so much.
Talking to you.
Yeah,
I appreciate
anytime,
it.
y'all.
Get the fuck out of here, Jeff. Me and Jeff.
Man, I got to go to bed anyway. I got work to do.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
All right, love y'all. Bye.
Me and Jeff smoked some dank weed one time, a couple days ago, and he couldn't find his car.
But yeah, the caves are amazing. We've talked about this Longo. You've seen the articles. They find insane stuff. I mean, man-made arches, Egyptian hieroglyphics, all kinds of stuff. So, What's up, man?
Trav,
hey,
828. That's that's North Carolina, right? We talked.
No, that's my birthday.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So we did talk. Actually, I talk too much. You know how I do it, but this is the way it is. I'm full of a lot of information, like you too. I wish y'all would talk faster. Actually, you guys are really, really good onto a lot of good stuff. I love it. I love Paul Cook. I love a lot of you guys, and you guys are opening people's eyes.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, and man, I was tell you what. I was into that spirit stuff. I was thinking about a cat because you said that about the cats, and I was like, I bet I could get the spirit to get this cat to follow me, and he followed me the next day. I know that sounds crazy and all, but you really do open the mind. I think we close the mind too much. One of the coolest things that I found, honestly, with the connection between all y'all's channels, it seems like y'all are going through all the old world gods' destruction, and I know that sounds weird, and maybe it doesn't to you, and you just don't broach the subject. But it seems to me like, and I got to be honest with you, I've been put through a little bit of situation, kind of like analog, where I've been gathering the pieces, what's left on the internet. And luckily there's some channels that are still open, but the situation that led me to start looking, because at first I found a book on mound people, tall mound people, like Analog looks up a long time ago, but I didn't think much of it. And Mysterious Monuments, that was a crazy book, especially when I came to find out he died in a shootout. You know how that always happens. And seems like free energy, all that stuff, everybody ends up getting hammered somehow. I hate to see how they're doing this. And to be quite honest with you, I don't think we got a time left with all this dumb stuff going on. I mean, you know, hey, it is what it is. You know, I really don't care one way or another. I love people. I love every race. I love seeing different things. I'm not a same person. I don't like the same room. I like different stuff. I love black people. I love white people. I think we all should you know, enjoy each other, even if we're in poverty or whatever. And that seems to be the best poverty. I don't know. It just, you know, hard times breeds beautiful things. And you know, I guess where I'm going with all this is that I have this visualization, and I got a camera, I got a couple things, but I don't mess around. I got like no ingenuity like you guys, but I have an idea, and this is my idea, and then I'll ask, and then I really do like hearing what y'all are talking about, but I want to give it to you. All right, look, Analog is the newspaper guy. You got the young hip guy that's got, honestly, he's on to Florida, which I do believe is probably I don't know, maybe post flood station. I don't know, maybe they built it after that. But the whole thing is that the Moors and all of them, you got the people from Alaska maybe that moved in, but especially that crazy stuff on that island, Jekyll Island, with those Indians where Rockefeller put his house right on it. A cheap house too.
A lodestone, and the house is called Mound
Yeah.
something. Yeah, it's built on a mound.
Ormond Beach is ore mound, a mound of ore. Ormond Beach.
And,
the load.
And it's weird how all those were cannibalistic, and they got photographs of all that. But so
it's actually the same people that Longo talks about who lived in the. Yep, exactly. Same people. And okay. there's a Coquina. The oldest building on the island is Coquina.
Right, and I do believe that I do believe maybe they were giants, but I don't believe those were the giants that destroyed these buildings like they did. These old world buildings, they're just really super destroyed. You know, according to the narrative, TNT was, you know, made at a certain point, which was right before all these fires in New York and all this dumb stuff, which they apparently used to put out the fires. Like, whatever. But the whole thing is he's the newspaper guy. You definitely, or whatever you want to call it on the internet, and you definitely are really good at putting things together. I got to be honest with you, and I don't want to drop anything, you know, together, but I did leave a message on, you know, who you all ought to get with, which to me is like a picture guy. And he's got pretty far with the same thing. He's from Wales, but he's into the Americas as well, and the Phoenician background behind all that, which to me is associated with the bigger giants, the ones that are like the Liberties, the light bearer type, you know. And anyways, it just seems like y'all three would be great together.
Okay.
You know,
thanks for calling in, Trav.
All right, I do love it though.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, man. Have a good night.
Yeah, I mean, Janice's age and all the buildings in Italy, they were all giants, you know. And there are levels to it, just like levels to civilization. So there were definitely different heights at different ages. Pinpointing those is going to be incredibly difficult. But yeah, the mounds, they go all the way up to 12 feet. Scribbles, welcome.
What's up,
hey
Scribs?
Guys?
What's going on?
Not much. Just yep. Just want to take this moment to say thank you. You guys definitely throw in some good pieces into the puzzle. So yeah, I just wanted to call and say thank you and for your hard work and research and stuff. So yeah, there's I live in Wisconsin, and we got we got a lot of stuff. I mean, you name it, we got it. But I particularly work in a building that has been refurbished. Parts of it are left completely untouched. It's historically protected, but there's some definite real good secrets about the building I work in. I'm thinking I'm doing some videos and stuff and kind of showcasing. I'm just gonna want to make sure I get permission with my job.
With those. Exactly.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, it's amazing. I sat there for a decade looking at some of the window trim, and stuff looks, the concrete or whatever they used, I mean, it looks more like a polymer that was around the windows. I mean, if you were to water blast it, it would still look brand new. Like it's pristine condition. Tile rooftops, like all the ornaments. But the cool thing is the tunnels. They actually had to close off tunnels because people were coming in through the tunnels because the capital city has got tunnels stretching from east to west all the way down through the capital. And from what I've heard, there's rumors of like a whole like little mini city civilization of people that live down there. A lot of homeless and stuff have found their way into the tunnels and stuff.
Yeah, they always find where the warmth is.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, my birth city's the same way.
The what?
My birth city's the same way. The homeless took over the underground. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, and
Wisconsin is an amazing place. There's pyramids all over Wisconsin. There's a lake where the pyramids at the bottom of the lake. I think it's called Pyramid Lake.
Rock Lake, I think.
Yeah, maybe.
There's Rock Lake, and then I think there's Pyramid Lake. Lake Mills is known as Pyramid City.
Pyramid City, yeah. That's based on actual pyramids, and I've got a bunch of posts on that if you want to check them out. We got one more person, Scribble, so I appreciate your call. And thank you for watching. Yeah, appreciate it, man.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, man.
All right, let's get this. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's up?
No vax. What's up?
Yeah, no vax. Longo asked me last week if I was vaxxed, and no, I'm not. I'm not vaxxed.
So no pun intended.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Nope.
All loud and
No
clear.
pun. Just letting you know what was up. Gosh, I'm trying to catch up on the last hour of you guys talking. Sounds like you guys had a really great conversation.
Yeah.
Talked about everything.
Always do.
Were you relating the shape of Florida to the pineal gland?
Tampa Bay, yeah.
So Florida itself is the penis. Now
peninsula, yeah.
That would be connected to the navel chakra. So Florida and the Gulf area being the most fertile place on the planet, and where all the water comes from, and where you have this phallic imagery, is the navel chakra. It's no coincidence that this is a center for naval activity, right? This is where the ancient navy of Atlantis was. Naval, you get the idea. But then within that larger Florida peninsula, there's a smaller peninsula that's protecting Tampa Bay from the Gulf of Mexico. That's called Pinellas County. So that peninsula, within the peninsula, that's what we were saying represents the pineal gland, Pinellas County.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I just I popped in late and I was like, dang, I'm an hour late. I'm trying to listen to the last part, the last hour of the show.
We were mentioning that Italy and Florida have many overlays. The cities line up with each other geographically.
They're kind of both shaped the same, right?
And a lot of cities are in almost identical geometry to each other. And we were relating that Tampa Bay was related to Rome. Even in old articles, they talked about this. And in Rome, the most predominant symbol in the Vatican is the pineal gland or the pine cone. And the symbol in their words, comes from the pine, the stone pine.
Mm-hmm.
And we're relating the stone and the Omphale stone and the navel and all of these
Mhm.
things. So yeah, it's multi-layered. It's pretty amazing. And
Well,
Tampa Bay
interesting you
is
say stone pine because your pineal gland can solidify with certain things that we intake, right?
Oh, yeah.
right, and the symbolism of the stone is, magnetism, which
Mm.
constitutes consciousness essentially.
Knowledge, consciousness.
Yeah, all of it. Yeah, I mean, it even symbolizes AI. It's just it's this realm in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, magnetism is everything.
Interesting.
Duality. Yeah.
Duality. Now, you were saying earlier in the conversation too, something about this being where the Old Testament possibly took place.
Almost
I mean,
definitely.
yeah,
A lot of it.
Oh,
a
see.
lot of it. I mean,
Mhm.
there's gray areas there, but America or this area, from a biblical standpoint, is the old world.
Really?
I think there's a
So,
lot more before
Pre-flood, definitely.
pre-flood, definitely, absolutely.
yeah,
Cyclopean,
because people used to talk about the old world being Europe, but you guys think the old world was here in America.
100%.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah,
And
pilgrimages
so
and
this,
migrations.
Mhm.
The animals and the fauna, the flora and the
Mhm.
fauna, and the animals all have their root here. All of them.
well, there's that old picture of Noah's Ark that's really popular. It's in tons of people's homes, where it's a big boat and the animals
Yeah.
are going up. You guys think that happened here in South Florida?
Well, now listen. Even
Mhm.
in the mainstream archaeology,
Mhm.
the cheetah originated in America. The
The
horse,
lion. The lion, yeah.
camels, lions,
The elephants?
yes, all of them. The prehistoric ancestors to many of these modern species do, in fact, originate in the Americas. So,
Mhm.
for example, yes, many of these mammals and other animals would have made it to the Middle East, Babylon, Armenia, Turkey area, North Africa, and would have taken up populations there. Yes, that's the crux of a lot of this theory.
Whether or not they migrated there on their own or whether they were put in a ship or that's an allegory. I mean, that's kind of up to the listener to decide, but I think it's a bit of both. You have many cultures have many descriptions of what the Ark was.
I've got, one more article that I wanted to.
Can we put on the screen?
We don't have to read the whole thing, but yeah, I can pull it up.
Yeah, we'll have to read the article and then that'll be it for the night.
Okay. Longo, does this all relate to like the Mormon religion in some way?
For
like
sure.
What they believe as far as old information being found here?
I mean, that's
and
what
why they decided to call it Mormonism.
That's
their historical references are, I would say, more congruent to the narrative we're discussing. They don't align perfectly, of course not, but
right. It's kind of an interesting religion. There are a lot of negative things about it, positive things possibly too.
Yeah, I mean, it's all you can say that about any of them for sure.
Pretty much, right?
A religion is what you get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So
remember we were just looking at
exported ivory in 1777. Wow.
Yep. So we were just looking at oranges in 1773, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is Florida exported ivory in 1777. This is out of a Florida newspaper. While the 13 colonies of America were struggling for their independence against England, the east section of Florida, which was then a province of England and not at all interested in the conflict for American freedom, prospered phenomenally. Blah, 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 blah. Here are 3 excerpts listing during 1777, 8 tons of elephant's teeth, 3,750 casks of coffee, 5,870 casks of cocoa or cacao, whatever that is. Yeah.
Cocoa.
Surely these products were hardly native.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
exactly,
a lot of ivory.
Floridian products. So they say they didn't come from here, but that can't be true.
Now, isn't that crazy? Now I have 20,000 casks of deer skins. Well, the deer skins were native, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, tanned leather, raw hides, calf skins, that was all coming from Florida.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Yeah. It's 8 Negroes raw silk, gallons of honey, 93 gallons of honey, 46
wow.
barrels of flour, 2 casks of orange juice. Wife, but yeah. So yeah, that reminded me of that. I intended on bringing that up, but I think we're gonna have
Is
to
this
wrap
something
it
that might
up
be in your
here.
next video? Well, hey guys, Analog, Longo, thank you so much. I'm glad I was able to speak to you both at the same time. I appreciate what you're both doing. Definitely going to look out for more archivist videos in the future. Those should be really exciting.
Oh yeah,
and
guys.
Longo's videos, Dr. Longo's videos are all good, man. We always appreciate those.
Yeah, I mean, I'm dying to see the Greek video. I've been bugging him about it nonstop, so I'm sure it won't disappoint.
They never do.
No.
Well, thanks, guys. I hope you both have a great night. I'll pop off.
Yeah, thank you for calling.
Thanks,
Thank
Jay.
you.
No Vex.
No Vex. Jano, no Vex.
Have a good night.
Thanks again.
Yeah. Well.
All right. So, want to wrap it up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. All my kids want to see Dad before bed.
Okay.
So, thanks for sticking with us, guys. Sorry, Tribe of Light. Things ran a little long. We had some technical issues. Yeah, appreciate you, brother. Next one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I wanted to thank
Guys,
all the listeners.
Well, before you wrap it up, if you're watching on my end, go subscribe to Waking Up with Analog. Make sure you're staying tuned for the new Archivist series. And yeah, it's already taking off. So to speak.
Thanks to you.
But,
I owe a lot of it to you. Yeah, thank you. That means a lot. I wouldn't be here without Longo. And yeah, so on Tuesday I'll have Stellium 7. Petrified Titans is going to be the focus of that one. Episode 3 of the Archivist. And then on Wednesday, the 22nd, I'll have Paul Cook on for episode 4. And yeah, so tune in and thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. You know, I got a lot of polishing to do here, so I appreciate you guys' patience and Longo, of course, to you for doing this on short notice. But yeah,
of course,
it was a great talk, and I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks again, everybody. And tune in next week.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Have a good night.
Have a good night, everybody.